Hi and welcome. Krishna Shantakumar didn't want to change the world as much as make it a great experience for people who visited the restaurants that he helped to create and foster. A lifetime spent in building great experiences for people. Most of us who are outside of hotels and hospitality don't understand the work that goes in to creating the experience that we remember long after the meal is over. This is episode 75 of My First Job, the podcast that covers engaging career journeys. And every single one is full of twists, turns, and insights. My name is Venu Gopal Nair. I'm the host of the podcast and CEO of Ideascape Communications, an advertising agency into branding, creative, and design. So settle in, sit back, and enjoy the conversation. Hi, Krishna, and welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Mr. Nair. Good afternoon, everybody who's logged in. Very proud and privileged to be here on your 75th episode.
Thank you. So, shall we start at the point of the most? Was it a difficult decision dropping out of engineering school and deciding to pursue hotel management?
No, I think it was just a moment of intense stupidity, if I may call it that, that I even went into engineering. So it was when we in the 80s. It was if you did your PCMB, what you call STEM today, you
Yeah.
generally gravitated towards medicine. If you didn't think you could cut it to medicine, you went into dentistry or you did engineering. The very brave who had a background in from rural things went into agriculture maybe, but that
Hmm.
was the only three streams that you went to. And with great humility, I must say that my parents never pushed me into anything. I just
Okay.
assumed that since my father was an engineer, he would be very proud that I would become an engineer as well. And I think I surprised him by choosing engineering more than anything else. And so
Okay.
I think it was a bit of a relief when I was a disaster at engineering. And I'm a product of the Ramakrishna schooling system, the Ramakrishna
Right.
Ashram School, residential school in Mysore. So when I was at these crossroads, I went up to my Swamiji and says, I don't know what to do, whether to do law or I definitely don't want to do engineering. He said, all your life, in the 5 years that you were in Ramakrishna Vidyashala in Mysore, all you could do was go run away to the kitchen, serve people, mooch around, help the cooks, do this, do that. I think that's your calling. So he gave me my first bus fare, all that he had. He's a monk, he's a Swamiji. He gave me 140 rupees and said, get yourself to Manipal. They're giving out applications, fill that application, and let's see what comes out of it. So that's basically it. So I think the decision was a relief rather than a shock to the system. Relief to
No, that's
everybody.
wonderful. It's a wonderful start because it's almost as if someone else who's been observing you knew how deeply interested you were in the business of food, or at least in the
Very true.
environment of food.
Very true.
So, what
Very
is
true.
it like going through those days in catering college or the college that you graduated from?
So I kind of when I joined college, I was a little older than everybody else, having done my couple of years in engineering. So the moniker that stuck with me always was Big Daddy. But I knew that was something that I would be good at, for a change. The course is not as tough academically as it is arduous in terms of what is demanded of you. Okay, we are also talking about a time in an industry where the concept of HR and nurturing and taking care of future workforce and managers and people who would be working with you for the next decade or more didn't exist. So
Okay.
I'll give you an example. I did my training in your town in Taj Coromandel, phenomenal property, beautifully run, all of it. So as an when I finished when the chef finished his shift and he handed over to the next chef, he normally logged in all the produce that he had. So I
Okay.
have so much of chicken, so much of rice, so much of paneer, and he used to log in four trainees. So that
Okay.
gave you an idea of where you stood in that entire system. You were
Okay.
listed along with dahi, paneer, chicken, onions, and tomatoes. I'm handing over four trainees. Do what you will with them. But yes, it was an incredible time because we were already seeing growth. Hotels were booming, tourism was happening. I'm talking about 93 when I did my training in Coromandel. And it was an incredible time. Business was booming in Chennai. Chennai was a vibrant city, expat companies. So very challenging, very exciting, and wonderful experience all in all.
Okay. You joined the Ramana Shri group early on. Kudla is one of my, I don't know if Kudla existed at the point when you joined them, or you had to do some, you had something to do with it?
No, so unfortunately not. But the Ramnashri group itself was a very interesting group because it was the first of its kind pure for business traveler hotels. You know,
Okay.
you had a brief foray that Taj went into gateway hotels, which had positioned itself as a businessman's hotel, but it was still a little out of reach for the middle level manager or the not the absolute top. And so we
Okay.
have this clientele of public sector managers and pharma company managers who are traveling, and either they stayed in lodges or they stayed well beyond their budget in a five-star and then didn't have enough left over for even a meal. So we kind of slotted very, very well into that category. And so it was in a way, a pioneering brand as far as Bangalore went. But yeah,
Hmm.
fantastic experience there as well.
So give me
Fantastic.
a sense, Krishna, of the kind of differences that you have to think of when you're catering to a business traveler versus a family versus luxury, which are, I think, the segments.
Yes, you're very right because when we had, let me just talk about Ramnashri. Ramnashri was beautifully located, a modest sized property. We had, I think, about a little less than 60 rooms, little shy of 60
Yeah.
rooms. We had the business traveler, of course, but if you remember, that was the time that South Africa had just shaken off the white man's yoke. So or
Okay.
it was in the process of doing that. So you had and I don't know where it was, but South Africa had this massive uh, population of people who were Sai Baba Bhakts, Satya Sai Baba Bhakts. So you
Okay.
had all of them coming in. And they were coming into India for the first time, chasing up their roots, trying to find their hometowns. So that was a very interesting market to address. They had seen what foreign countries had to offer, and they were
Okay.
expecting it of us in India, which made us lift our game. And yes, because we were that when what is called the Southern Golden Triangle in those days, Bangalore, Uti, Mysore, and we were located and priced at a beautiful position. Plus, we had rooms at that stage in Mysore and Uti, so we had all of those travelers as well. Very exciting because we were one of its kind in that segment, but it's
Right.
also we had to make ourselves flexible to suit all their needs. A business traveler comes home evening tired. He just wants to watch TV. What went passed off for TV in those days, and order into his room. Whereas the family wants to eat an Indian meal or a Chinese meal, all of that. And you had these foreigners coming in who had tender stomachs, let me put it that way, tender stomachs who also had to be catered to. So you have to have people who are knowledgeable and say, okay, okay, avoid that, have this. Very nice. And for a young person, and I had two stints with the Ramneshi group, if I might just take you
Yeah.
back a little. I contracted malaria when I was at Coromandel. No fault of Coromandel's, but it's just so I kind of missed about a month and a half of my training. So my first
Okay.
stint with Ramnashi was to actually come after college and make up for the training period that I lost. So I got that bug, and I found that hotel was very vibrant. So when I had a chance, I went and said, "Listen, I'd like a job. I'm not really a fan of how five stars operate. I'm not casting aspersions at them, but I wasn't a fan at that stage of. I now realize that that gave you a better grounding, but here it was exciting. I was thinking, I was able to make decisions. I didn't have three layers ahead of me. I decided, even though I was a management trainee, it happened. So it was an exciting thing to place to be if you were a little young and a little brash, and perhaps.
Hmm.
So
It
yes,
was, yes.
there were many that came after Brahman Street, but I would like to say in Bangalore they were pioneers.
Okay. So, in terms of handling guests, what is it that as an early, entrant to the business, and what happens over time? Do you just get better at managing people, or do you learn to predict people better?
Beautiful question. There are different sensibilities. You're dealing with a guest, a business guest who spends 20 days living out of a suitcase. That's brutal. So
Yeah.
he's lonely. He's yearning for home. He just wants his comforts. He wants the hot water in the shower to be powerful and hot when he comes home. He wants his room service order to go in 20 minutes. He wants breakfast available at 7 if he wants it at 7. The taxi guy, the travel desk guy has to have his car ready. His needs are very basic. His eyes are glazed having traveled for 20 days and
So
he
long.
doesn't know
Yeah.
whether he's going home. I
Yeah.
know of business travelers who used to tell me, where will I get a pant and shirt ready made,
Wow.
right now? Because the laundry doesn't catch up. I'm being,
Okay.
but those were one guys. And then you had the like I said, the South African Indians who were coming in, who had so many questions, and it was fascinating trying to find the root of their name and their recollection of what their hometown could be, and their names were spelled differently over the years. What they
Yeah.
hometown to be was different, so that was nice. And of course, as always, challenging the family traveler who has different pressures. We were a business hotel, so we didn't even have a facility for a child to be engaged. So we had to think in terms of crayons and coloring books and paper and just kept in the lobby for them to go help themselves. Things like that. You
Hmm.
have to learn along the way. And I think the most important thing that I learned very early on was to listen. They know
Okay.
what they want. They're not
Yes.
demanding the earth, moon, and the stars. Their demands are very simple.
Okay.
Listen, say yes, say no, go out of your way, and then you have made a friend in a relationship for life.
Exactly. And I've seen, you walk into certain restaurants, and some people have a way of making you feel completely at ease,
Absolutely, absolutely.
which you don't know why. It's almost as if you walk and that person seems to have things under control. And when you ask a question, you get a clear answer. And that seems to be a difficult thing given I'm sure you're training so many people. You've trained over 800 staff going into several hotels. So you know what they come in as and what they finally graduate out as.
Very true, very true. If you looked at old Hollywood movies, the great black and white movies,
Yeah.
when the hero or the heroine walked into a fancy restaurant, the Maitradi, the person who received him, made such an impression on you. And he was smart, he was suave, he was able, he was efficient. And he said, "Yes, sir, absolutely, sir, right now, sir." You know, without being subservient or, kowtowing
Yeah.
or bowing, he held
Yeah.
his dignity. And for me, even when I started my career, we did have these kind of people. And I had great admiration for them. At Taj Coromandel, we had a barman, I think his name was John Peter or something. Great listener. I don't think he understood half of what the people sitting across the bar counter were telling him about. I think if we
Okay.
had got that bar, we would be stock market billionaires, and we'd know all the politics of the day and the politics of the cricket stadium and the politics of Gymkhana
Yeah.
Club and all that. But he was a person that exuded the whole image of "I'm here for you. What can I do for you?"
Okay.
That was an aura about those people, which is incredible,
Yeah.
and I aspire to that. I have great admiration for those people. They never forget a face. And
That
that was
that is
fantastic.
quite amazing. And
Yes.
how to leverage that into a way that establishes a connection
And
is an art
absolute
in
discretion,
itself.
no? No faux pas.
Yeah.
Never will they tell you, where is madam? She hasn't come today, even by mistake. Absolute
Yeah.
discretion. Anyway.
So your first project in Hospet, which was your passion project, where you transformed with your friend what was a lodge into the first kind of. I haven't been the place, though I'm told that it has a wonderful ambience and atmosphere.
Yes.
So how did you approach it?
So the whole thing was the property as it has existed had been run by elder generation, let me put it that way.
Okay.
And it was more in terms of keeping with what Hospit was there. It was a trading town. The mining boom had not started, and the tourist boom had not started. The foreign traveler had not discovered Hampi as yet. So Hospit is the
Okay.
gateway to the magnificent ruins of Hampi,
Hampi.
which is the
Okay.
old erstwhile Vijayanagara kingdom. And so Hospet had not yet arrived in its moment in the sun, as it were. That was starting. The charter traveler coming into Goa was going to be there for 6 days in Goa. There's only that much of any sun and sand that he could take. So he was looking for a 2 day excursion out of Goa, and Hampi, being accessible by road, Hospet became the gateway to that experience. There were
Okay.
very few hotels in that city which could fulfill that charter traveler requirement. So we were
Okay.
perfectly positioned, and my friend whose family owned the property recognized that we need to bring it up to another level. It had two eateries. We needed to bring it to the next level. The rooms need to be upgraded from a lodge to something which could, attract a foreign traveler. And now the sudden Indian travel boom had started. So that traveler too. So it was flow by flow. Can we do this? Can we not do this? And always the budget, the bottom line governed all decisions. But he had a vision for the future. He had an incredible vision for the future. And so we did it flow by flow, slowly. We had to upgrade the restaurant and have it in such a way that the foreigner was comfortable being seated there. It
Yeah.
wasn't, intimidating, or it wasn't a place that a foreign lady traveler would be a little feel out of place. So all of that. What for me was fascinating was, and I'm very very grateful to my friend and his family who allowed me that, that all of that elbow space, was I could pretty much shape that the way I thought it would do well even in Bangalore. Never
Yeah.
thinking for the moment that this is a small town, let's not go overboard. The
Okay.
sensibility I wanted to bring was this should not be out of place in Bangalore. A Bangalorean traveling here, she said, "Oh, this is as good." Yeah. So they gave me that freedom. So I'm incredibly grateful to them.
No, that's great. Krishna, there's one thing which, in my mind, when I walk into a restaurant, the the space between tables somehow seems to make a huge difference to the kind of comfort you feel. And yet, some restaurants, the only one that I've seen capitalize on it is Leopold's in Bombay, where you can't get to the, any table without either brushing someone else's elbow or tripping over the food. I really wonder how waiters navigate that place. But in any other place, comfort essentially comes from having your own space within a public space. So, how do you go about designing that, or is it something that comes to you as a matter of instinct?
So we approach it from different ways. There is a standard that says if it's a cafe or a coffee shop or a busy high energy restaurant, you need to devote 9 square feet per diner. Okay,
Okay,
and the more high up you go up in the spectrum of what you're trying to offer, that can go to about 16 square foot per person, 16 square feet
okay,
per person. The more luxurious brands might even go to 22 feet, depending
okay,
on what they're trying to do and if they're giving privacy and all of that. Some restaurants like Leopold's, and there are many such, you can actually complete the other person's conversation. You can complete his sentences for him.
yeah, that's a great way to
You
put
know,
it. Yeah,
if there's a little gust
yeah,
of wind, his rotis will be on your plate. That's pretty much it. But I think Even clientele feeds off the energy of such a place,
Yeah.
right? They feed off the energy of a Ratna Cafe busy in the morning. They feed
Yeah.
off the energy of the the T Nagar Savana Bhavan, where somebody saw all the Madurai eateries, all the famous legendary eateries.
Right.
Somebody is literally breathing down your neck, waiting for you to finish up and
Finish.
so they can sit down.
Yeah.
So those kind of eateries feed off that energy. I think they're built around that energy. Some people bring it through the clientele and the busyness of the place. Some people have music to do it. Some people have liquor to do it, the easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
Energy comes from all the libations that you're consuming. And some
Right.
people do it, the right royal way. They are busy. They unabashedly busy, and nobody has time to say hello to you. So you
Yeah.
just keep your eye on the table and just make a beeline for it, and hopefully you'll get there. It's like that. Cafe Mondega, Leopold's, and I'm sure there are just as many
Lots of
eateries
all of
in
that.
Chennai and
Yeah.
Bangalore,
Exactly.
like that,
Exactly.
who are high energy, and I think it's to a great extent intentionally so. Some might just happen to become that way,
Yeah.
completely unintentionally. And some places which are intimate might just never fill up the table, so you never know.
Yeah.
And
Right.
every 10 restaurants that open, 7 do well, and 3, I wonder. And I've spent a lifetime trying to figure out what did they do wrong, why did they
Yeah.
close, and I don't have
Yeah.
the answer.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah. Even
sound all
it's
erudite and
simply the
knowledgeable,
vibe of the
but I
place.
don't
Yeah.
have the answer.
Very true. Very true. What is your welcoming speech or the first thing that you say to a new batch of students who join?
I can give them the stats, that the hospitality industry in India is adding 2 million people every year, different facets of hospitality.
Every
So
day,
that's every year.
every
2
year.
million
Okay,
people
wow.
being
Okay,
added to the workforce in India alone every year. And this is a conservative, according to me, a very conservative estimate.
right.
We have this large brush that we brush things with, which says the organized sector. I'm saying the organized sector is claiming 2 million people required every year. So that could be my selling point. But I personally tell them my story. I said, I'm passionate about what I do. And very early in my career, I knew that the hours were long, they were brutal. There wasn't much of a family life I enjoyed. And I used to, we all sneak into our homes like thieves at about 12:30, well past midnight, try not to wake up everybody, slip into the cars, and then, try and catch up with family life in the morning. But I told myself very early in life that the day I wake up and I say, Ayo, I have to go to work, that should be the last day, or the countdown, reverse countdown begins from that. It is passion, but today it is rewarding. My first salary in 95 was 660 rupees, out of which 140 rupees was cut as cafeteria fees. Right? Today, my contemporaries who stayed in the five-star chain are doing extremely well, extremely well. So it's rewarding
Okay,
as well. It's getting there.
okay.
It is tough, but it's fascinating. I've met paupers, princes, and every other P you can imagine, and it's been very enriching. I'm prime
I can
minister's
imagine.
very, very, very,
Yeah.
very. Sorry. And
So,
believe me, I haven't been in a five-star where this is, it's
yeah.
just every day. I've been in modest brands, I would say middle-class establishments, we like that word, and I've still had a very enriching experience meeting some absolutely brilliant people.
And you've seen the culture of the country change from hardly ever eating out, because I think my generation, at least, it used to be that only when you went on trips or you went on, tourist vacations, that you ate out at all. There was no concept of eating out. That was like it was like ready-made clothes. You always had your tailor. You had your,
Very
the person who would get your clothes. So that change, you have seen it happening, like you said, from the Sarvana Bhavans of the world to the Geetam Cafe or Vidyarthi Bhavan, which is now still going strong. Like you said, the place seems to have an ethos, an MTR, or a. So
Very true. Many.
again, yeah. So is there? I'm sure there isn't a formula. It's like a music, like you said. It's a you can keep thinking about why these things worked or why they didn't, and you may not have answers. It's just that a certain set of things they've got to try it.
Listen, I think a little bit of it is to do with the fact that are we eating out is no longer a stigma. You know,
Yes,
okay.
very true.
If mother was not well, father managed. He
Yeah,
fried some eggs, gave some bread.
yeah,
If nothing
yeah,
else, there's curd rice and pickle, things like
yeah.
that. So that has left. So
Hmm.
my parents always tried to give us. It was tight, but tried to give us. We lived in Bangalore. I started my life as a child in Bangalore. So we had one Chinese restaurant, which was half home and half restaurant, and
Yeah.
it was value for money. So we went there, and that was a once a month indulgence. And if my father felt very magnanimous, he could also include a movie. But to change that, to put it in perspective, a country like Singapore,
Yeah.
an average person in Singapore, and this is from a podcast which I just heard, fascinating podcast, eats out 52 times a month. A month.
Wow.
Okay. So I guess it's to
Okay.
do with husband and wife working and the conveniences of eating out or buying food out of a stall, a hawker stall, and then going home and make a rice and just add the curries and the stir fries to it. Whereas in India, we are still way behind, despite our Swiggy and Zomato and cloud kitchens and dark kitchens and all the new, jargon that we
Terminologies.
see.
Yeah.
We're, I think, at about 8 times or 9 times a month in the city. I
Okay.
don't think it's anywhere close to that, but it's changing. You drive through small tier two today. You have a Domino's. You possibly have a KFC. So it's changing. How much of impact it has on our health, that's a different question, but it's a very exciting field. The possibilities of somebody entering the field at a very low level, it's still doing something passionate with food, exists now. Exists now. And so a lot of hotel restaurants that didn't survive the lockdown have come back in a similar form, either as a cloud kitchen or as a brand that is only takeaway. So live to fight another day.
You painted a fascinating picture of an entire society in change because it's almost like with the joint families moving into nuclear families, the need to go out or the one person who was doing the cooking at home wanting a break and taking going out at least once or twice a week became the norm. And today, of course, children don't think twice about uh, like you said, it can go up to 52, it can go up to 60, and the kitchen has now diminished in terms of what used to be the center point of a house where meals held together. Even that is no longer true because while you watch television together, you may not be actually on the same channel, or you may not be. So
You're not probably
yeah,
not.
you're not. And the taste, that is the other thing that I've observed, that uh, weekends normally can be explosive flashpoints for what cuisine happens. So fine.
Very true.
Do you want Chinese or do you want Indian or do you
Very
want
true.
South Indian? All of that gets to be, which you
Do you
never
remember a
had.
brand? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Do you
No, no,
remember a
please.
brand from Delhi called Nirulas?
Yes, yes,
So,
absolutely.
Nirulas used to fascinate me. You have
Huh.
three generations there,
Yeah,
and Dada Dadi are having their paneer butter masala, or butter chicken, and naan.
yeah,
The adventurous father and mother are either having Chinese or they're having dosa,
yeah,
not dosa, dosa, and the kids are having their burger pizza.
yeah,
Right? It was for me in the late 90s. It was
yeah,
just a fascinating brand. I said, This is
Absolutely.
it. This is just capture it all. And if you go to drive past any large apartment complex in whichever city you are in, on
Yeah.
a Sunday evening, you will
Yeah.
see about 20 delivery bikes parked outside. I
Yes.
think kitchen shut after Sunday lunch. The
Yes.
lady makes that Sunday feast and she's done.
She's
She
done.
There's no
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
There's no question. So yeah,
Now
I think
this now this 2 million uh, you know opportunity is created every year. Is there some kind of a breakup as to how this is between the luxury mid-size and then the, or is it a overall?
so. Let me answer that question a little differently, if I may. All the academies, the catering colleges, the private ones, the government institutes of hotel management, applied nutrition and catering technology, of which there are, I think, about 16 or 18 now. And all of the private institutes are focused on making generals and majors.
Okay.
There is nobody addressing the need for a foot soldier.
Okay.
So I'm going to plug my company shamelessly. Adevo aims to change that. We are creating foot soldiers. My business partner is a Air Force brat, and she said I was very tempted to say we are the creating the Agni wheels of hospitality. She said you will not use that term, but I'm saying that
Yeah.
that is the larger, that's the bottom of the pyramid, and that's not being addressed. With all this infrastructure, private institutes, some of them highly dubious, 90 to 95% of institutes of hotel management or catering or that ones that teach you that promise you a job in the hospitality don't have skills or infrastructure that match what is required. So you are joining those courses, and there's actually no light at the end of the tunnel. So we are hoping to democratize that, and we are saying that we will make you job ready in 4 weeks or 6 weeks if you have the aptitude to go a little further. We will place you on a job, 16, 17, 18,000 rupees salary. We'll monitor you for 3 months, and we will ensure that you've landed on your feet. And I mean, it's a different economics model that we work on, but finally we take the bulk of your fee from the end user, from
Okay.
the person employing you. So it's very extremely easy for that guy who's come off the Coromandel Express or the Howrah Express and lands in Chennai Central and wants a job in the city. So that's the kind of market that we want, the kind of person that we want in our academy. And we want to train that person and say, here is a way out, dignified job, good employers, good life, and phenomenal prospects. Phenomenal prospects.
And it's a lovely niche, though it is not a niche. It is actually the main, like you said, generals and majors are not what you require in large numbers. It's
Yeah.
always the foot soldiers. But what do these people do? You train them for all kinds of
So we have three,
functions.
generally it's all three kind of verticals, food and beverage service being the largest. So unsatiable appetite of restaurants for staff,
Yes,
right? And even the best companies are woefully inadequate in their learning and development infrastructure and in some cases even intent, right? So these people will be placed in standalone restaurants or restaurants, and based on their aptitude, if nothing else, join the a hospital for that meals or airlines or whatever it is.
right,
So food and beverage service is a large segment that we address. Housekeeping, hotels, hospitals, tech parks, malls, 2 weeks courses, 2 week courses, assured jobs, put them a dignified living. The
right.
devastation of COVID has meant that people who were office employed, I'm just going to be gentle when I say it, had office jobs, POs and things like that, don't have that job anymore because offices are
Right.
unoccupied. Right? We have large buildings which housed 3,000, 4,000 people, which have now 400 people coming. It's changing around, but still not got to the sizes that it was. So where do those people go for jobs? I said, this is a
True.
dignified job, you know. I'm not asking you to become a domestic. That's a different, it still unfortunately has stigma attached to it, but dignified job, company, on the roll, and all the benefits. You might get your ESI, you might get your PF, based on which segment you are, but it's a job, it's a meaningful employment, and you're no
Yes.
longer a burden, you're a contributor. So that's the other. The fourth
And
is, of course, front of the house. And when we say front of the house, yes, we train them for the hospitality field, but they get lapped up pretty much everywhere else. Everywhere else.
okay.
And
Okay.
now in Karnataka and Kerala, there is this requirement for this a jack of all trades. So there's the homestay boom has meant that you need people who can make a cup of tea or coffee in the morning, serve out the food made by the housewife who's running the homestay, make a bed, clean a toilet, and carry your luggage, a little bit of everything, keep that homestay going. So that's a course that we are trying to take into the hinterland and places where homestays are booming, and impart that and say, okay, here's one more chance for you to do something meaningful. And housekeeping is great for a lady who wants to contribute to the household piggy bank, kitty.
Krishna, I was about to ask you, has Airbnb and these things impacted your business? And you preempted my question with this whole answer of saying that there's the
I was
jack of all
shamelessly
trades,
plugging,
which is
Adevo. So
no,
uh,
it's one of those things that nobody expected would happen. That the
yes,
person, renting out the house or a room does not really want to be involved with all the other aspects of managing a guest. And that calls for these kind of skills. You should be able to cook, you should be able to make a bed and look after the place and keep it all tidy. That's so true.
and put out
So
just a decent breakfast, if at all. And
yeah,
there are cities in India and South India especially where this is being done for close to a century
yeah,
now.
yeah,
Mysore, because of it becoming a center of all that yoga training,
right.
has families have let out 2 rooms to foreigners seeking yoga education for decades now. So it's just now getting a little formalized.
Yeah, yeah. Because at that point it seemed unusual, but like you said, the practice has always existed in places where there's a sudden influx of people, like a temple town where suddenly during a
Yes.
certain season there are people coming in, or music, at a certain season people come in. So that obviously that leads to all of these things coming in. Theme restaurants. I noticed that you have been closely involved with several thematic uh, expressions of restaurants. What is the essential difference when you're looking at themes, apart from the cuisine, decor, and what are the things that you consider?
So you spoke about Leopolds. So
Yeah.
for the Leopolds in Bombay, we have the Koshis in Bangalore. Very
Okay.
strong nostalgia-driven brands. Right? Today, nostalgia is one of the largest driving forces for dining. If in the middle of Chennai you say, okay, I'm going to recreate the traditional Madras Gymkhana menu and serve that in my cafe, you'll have a pull.
Yeah.
Apart from the obvious, people have traveled out of home and we intermarry. We don't have wives from our community anymore. So the Kerala man misses his parota and beef. The
Yeah.
Parsi has married out of the community. He's ostracized possibly, so he doesn't get his dansa. So those restaurants have always done well. Today we are moving towards hyper local. You
Yeah.
say I am not Chettinad food. I am not
Yeah.
Konganad food. I am
Right.
that corner of Madurai food, that
Right.
corner of Erode food. So that's hyper local. This nostalgia driven. menus. But menu is one driving force. Menu is one
Yeah.
driving force. You know, there are people in Bangalore who have recreated, I'm sure in Chennai and other places as well, who have recreated speakeasies. Well, the
Yeah.
generation of people going to those restaurants don't even know what a speakeasy is. They
Yeah.
don't know what prohibition is. They live in a, nothing has been prohibited for that generation. But
Yeah.
recreating that. So thematically, like you very rightly said, cuisine is one theme, decor is one theme, more and more music is a theme.
Okay.
I yearn to go to places where my generation of retro rock is played. Right? I cannot abide by this thumping techno and all that stuff. I cannot. So I'd like to go. But on certain occasions, I also like to go to a place where country is played or jazz is played. So music and now performance venues,
Hmm.
places where performances happen, that's another big growing market. And when I say performances, I don't necessarily mean only music.
Hmm.
There are performances venues where Tuesday is travelogue day. You come and
Okay.
talk about your travels. Open mic for comedy. Comedy is boomed.
Okay.
Open mic for poetry. Poetry. Nice poetry,
Okay.
slam poetry, different things. So there are performance venues, and so all of those are themes, but it only works when everything, ties itself together. I
Yes.
was when the news came out a couple of years ago about this jail-themed restaurant in Chennai. Yeah.
Exactly.
So great, but you have to get all the other elements right as well. Otherwise, it just
Yeah.
remains a fact. It just
Yeah.
remains an Instagram reel or somebody's story and something quaint that you once heard somebody talk about. But to
Right.
sustain it, all the elements of food has to be good. The theme is only going to take you that far. The food has to be good. The food has to
Yeah.
be, service has to be good. Everything has to tie in and it has to be flawless. So the restaurant business, I'm sorry, I'm dragging this answer a little long.
No,
Uh,
that's exactly what I want.
you have to run at a sprint to stay in the same place. It's
Right.
that challenging. It's that challenging.
Yeah.
Because unlike a hotel restaurant which has 60 rooms on top that'll feed your, the footfalls into your restaurant, here
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
expecting that guy to battle traffic and rain and
Yeah.
parking and come from his home to this, wherever you're located and,
Yeah.
enjoy your meal. And so he's a little frazzled getting there. You need to kind of, get
Get it
that
there.
sorted out.
Yeah. This whole, culture of driving and eating, which of all things was started by a tire company, Michelin, is one of the things that I find fascinating, that it has driven culture not just in the US where it originated, but practically everywhere, of going out of the way. Because that, like you said, all of these things have their own. You have a car so you can travel. The roads have been built so you can make inroads. In India, you travel 60 kilometers, 100 kilometers, and you can experience different cuisine.
Absolutely.
I've always been fascinated by how is it that on a highway, people figure out that if I've left Bangalore and I'm driving to Chennai, 1 hour later or 1.5 hours later is when they'll feel hungry. And that's the point at which I begin to look for that place. Woody's used to be there. And all of these. So there's so many things that go into the mix.
Very
But
true.
in a place like this, how do you contend? This was news to me, that you do things within 4 weeks, courses within 4 weeks. It is a quick, it's like the fast food restaurant. You have the fast food, you know, which is required to be done because that's how the market is evolving.
So I'm only training for to create a person who 5 years ago before or 3 years ago before I started this I would have hired. The skill
Okay.
set that I'm looking is a combination of his skills, of course, but also
Yeah.
his personality. He should be a
Okay.
pleasing guy. He can't be
Yes.
surly. He can't not smile. He has to be bubbly. He has to like his job. The skill set is just that much. The rest he'll learn on the job. We are intelligent people. We are adaptable people. And the 4 weeks is also for him to lose that mystique of being in a big city. You
Okay.
know, the COVID has been brutal to these folks who come a long way to work in our city. We have treated them very, very badly, Mr. Nair. In the COVID time, we have betrayed their trust. They come all the way, leave their homes, leave their families, sometimes wife and children, looking for a life in our cities, and we discarded them. We treated them very shabbily in the COVID. The stories were not lies, they were not just celluloid tales, they were true tales. So we are finding that resistance for people to come to the city. So if I can spend a week telling him that this is not such a bad place to be, and then I can get across to him, and then his natural, you know, Atiti Devo Bhava lives in all of us. Adevo, uh, by the way, is a distillation of Atiti Devo Bhava. Adevo, that's our
Okay.
company. But that lives in all of us, right? Uh, you go into the deepest, driest part of Rajasthan, they'll give you a glass of water which they probably went 4 kilometers to
Yeah.
draw from a well. That's in us.
Exactly.
So all it takes is 4 weeks. And if they have an aptitude for more, then a little 2 more weeks. But our idea is that we tell the restaurant, listen, we've got this batch coming up. How many of these people do you want? And the response we get has been very heartening, very, very heartening. So that's basically it. It's just a question of getting them ready enough and asking them to, open their senses to what their job entails. And then they'll pick up. They're intelligent. It's incredible how many of them cooks who have no exposure to talking to people have taught themselves how to write an indent, a store indent in English. They're from
Amazing.
absolutely hinterland India, come here and have learned. We are incredibly intelligent people, very resourceful, and that's something that we've not tapped into very well, which we should.
How do you overcome the language issue apart from the culture? Is that
Language
one of the issues as well?
yes, yes, yes. And there's a two language issues. One is although English is the general medium of interaction in restaurants, there is also this parochial feeling that don't you know Kannada, don't you know Tamil? So the first thing that we teach them is don't go and say in Kannada, I don't know Kannada, Kannada gottilla, or Tamil theriyade. You say Tamil konja konja, Kannada solpa solpa. It mollifies that guy to thinking that you're making an effort. Okay,
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
giving out only trade secrets here. But anyway,
Yes.
English is a large component of how we deal with this. And we are not talking about collegiate school level. We are talking about teaching them English like how Anganwadi children in Bangalore are taught. Kindergarten or upper KG or UKG, whatever you call it. I think that age group of children, the way we teach them English, which is communication. You make them stand in front of a mirror and repeat that word till they're comfortable rolling it off their tongue.
Mm.
Because again, it's breaking barriers. It's losing that inhibition, shaking yourself down, go brew and then start again. It's like what you do in a theater. When you're doing
Yeah.
drama, you say, "Okay, just
Right.
shake yourself off and start again." It's like that.
Right.
But there, you have to get rid of more than just nerves. You have to get rid of being
Exactly.
told in bad schools that you're not good enough. It's all of that.
How do you get people to know about you? How has your
Ah.
business been generated?
Well, that's been a challenge. That's been a challenge. So we were hoping, and we still hope that a lot of what we do is also train staff from restaurants. You mentioned that. We are hoping that each of those staff become an ambassador for us.
Right.
Okay. And in my 22-year career, I've interacted with 300, 400 people, a lot of whom I'm in touch with still. So hopefully they become our ambassadors. And every boy who comes from a small town, from Mizoram, from Meghalaya, from here, from there, comes into the city and has a good life, finds a purpose, finds a rewarding life, will tell somebody there is something to be made here. But I don't want Adevo to limit itself to being a provider of staff for Bangalore. Eventually, we want to take away, or I'm very proud to tell you that we've opened a second center in a town called Tornagalu. Tornagalu
Okay.
is a town between Hospet and Bellary, where there's a massive Jindal Steelworks facility. So the
Okay.
Jindal Foundation, the JSW Foundation, has called us, and we've started a center this last Monday where we are going to be training people from that area, not for jobs in Bangalore. It's for jobs in Hospet, in Bellary, in your the town closest to you, because all these cities are booming. All these cities are booming. There are pubs the size of Bangalorean pubs in Gulbarga, in small town Tamil Nadu. Not small town, but town Tamil Nadu, not city Tamil Nadu. And same in Karnataka. So why come to Bangalore? I mean, Bangalore is a long way away from what you should aspire. You should aspire for a good job close to home. That way, you still have some roots in your community, and then more people follow in your footsteps. So that's the ambition. Hopefully, we'll get there in a short while. But
And
essentially,
you're solving for a problem that exists here and now. You're not
yeah.
saying that I will look at it, it'll take 2 years to train someone, 3 years, and you're starting them off. Have you noticed that these people who start off are interested in taking longer term courses later? Do they try and upskill? What is the reskill part of what you do?
So again, the COVID has created a lot of churn, a
Okay.
lot of churn. So a lot of the old hierarchy within a restaurant, within a good, well-run standalone restaurant, so has gone topsy-turvy because they
Okay.
needed people and they needed fast. So people started hiring based on CVs and not really checking very deeply what the antecedents and precedents of that person are, what his actual skill set is. We are telling them that, listen, you're about to launch. Here is where you are in terms of what your present team is capable of. Help us help you get there, get to that launch stage. So that is predominantly what we did with those 800, I mean, the 400, 500 people that we've trained. We have helped get them to that launch stage or lift their game. Ours is a very strange business. When you open your doors and you get your first customer, the next day you lose 10% of your staff. After all these years, I don't know why that is. Kitchen, they just go.
Okay.
First salary, even more will go. So you have the churn. Attrition rates are high. Regardless if you're a very fair and very humane employer, attrition rates are very high. So our reskilling is that we assume you know some things, but we are telling you you need these skills more. And there are people who have come up from, some of my finest chefs, people have been proud to work with, have come as washer boys, have started life
Okay.
as washer boys. When
Okay.
I was with the previous brand that I was, a brand I was for was 2 decades with them. My Thai chef was a washer boy, and my tandoor chef, genius with kebabs, began his life as a like a loader or a helper in the store. He did only grunt work, but somehow grow, personal interest. They came and they're brilliant. So reskilling is about that. You've done the same job for 8. The world has moved on. Today, when we started Thai in my previous restaurant, we had English in Thai and in English descriptively. Today, you sit in that Thai restaurant and you hear around you people ordering in Thai. They've traveled. They know what they're eating. They want what they want. So that knowledge has meant that the game has moved far beyond what these boys began their lives with. So reskilling is that. And upskilling is an idea to reskill people um, who have changes in profession. So that was something that we wanted to do for army people, short service, what after the army. So create
Okay.
courses, create things, supervisor level jobs for them where they can manage a cafeteria, they can manage a hospital catering operation, they can manage that. They have the discipline, they have the personal integrity, which is important. So get them to do that, So those are the three core areas that we want to address. We're a 3-year-old company. We were born in the lockdown, and hopefully we'll get there in all that we aspire to be.
It's an amazing story, and the dots that I'm connecting are actually things that I didn't expect to connect before we started this conversation. Because when you talked of nostalgia, when you talked of homestays, I didn't see them as um, separate segments almost. And the skill that is required in each one of these things, for example, in a nostalgia restaurant, you got to go back, or let's say, take the chef has to, the decor, everything is dictated by what does that home convey. And a homestay itself can be very different depending on which part of the country it is in. So, how does one adapt? And then,
One of the things that most homestay operators get wrong,
huh,
and I'm going to address them trying to please a foreign tourist.
okay,
So they believe a foreigner wants rich looking cosmetics and toiletries and flouncy blankets. A foreigner wants a clean room,
yes,
a pillow cover and a bed sheet and a blanket that looks freshly laundered.
right,
You keep off a chinnakade sachet of shampoo, they're happy,
okay,
right? So those notions needed to change, and
right,
hopefully they'll everybody who's attempting to be a homestay provider or a little more than just homestay. Today, your estate stays, you have farm stays, you have a whole gamut of people opening up their homes and their lives and their things to other people. But not to lose sight of the absolute basics. Even if you're having a miserable day in your home, it should never reflect on the guest. So the
right,
best of us, the best of the chefs, the best of managers, never let a guest experience diminish because of what demons they are facing. And that
right,
carries through for all of these brands. All of these
right.
brands. I'll give you an example,
Huh,
something very serendipitous. So we started this for the hospitality world. But we had a meeting with a very interesting person for a different reason. And something he
okay,
said struck a chord with us. He said, what do we lack in hospitals, the front of house operations of hospitals? Do you know what it is, Krishna? Krishna, if I go with a Taj, no. If I close my eyes, every Taj, I open my eyes and I smell and I see, I know I'm in a Taj. Even if my brain fade at the moment. That consistency of experience, that wonderful common way in which they greet you, warmth. So you guys are always the benchmark for hospitality, courtesy, and everything else. Why can't we bring it to the hospital sector? And so we did that. We have
okay,
this product specifically for people who interact with guests for in healthcare. So we've actually trained about 4,800 hospital professionals,
wow,
front of the house people, anybody who in the hospital interacts with a guest, teaching them grooming, personal hygiene, effective communication, etiquette and communication, how to communicate, body language. What are you saying? What are you understanding? Making them
hmm,
understand that the person standing opposite them has a heightened sense of, emotion, all of that.
hmm, right.
That's an offshoot that we didn't think would happen has happened.
And the wonderful part of what you do, Krishna, is that none of these jobs can ever be virtual.
You
Yeah,
know,
there are so many jobs which today they'll say AI will take over and something else will take over. But the human connect, the contact, the fact that we can enjoy food twice a day, the fact that we can get to meet people in different parts of the country and the world and savor cuisine which may be strange to our palates, but you discover a new sense of oneness, you discover a new taste. And thank you for what you do, because I think, like you said, you bring a whole group of people who don't believe that people can be compassionate and help. You're giving them a chance to pick up life all over again.
Well, it's been a privilege. It's been an absolute privilege to be part of this industry, and I'm blessed that I've come to a stage where I enjoy it and I'm able to impart that passion to somebody else. And thanks to people like you telling a larger audience that we are still not, a forgotten industry. There are a lot of more, you know,
Yeah.
sexier industries, but we are still there, and it's a wonderful
No.
profession to be part of.
Thank you, Krishna. It's been a privilege. And here's wishing you
Absolutely.
growth, happiness, and may you bring many more memorable experiences to the lives of people you touch.
Thank you. Thank you for making this so easy and a wonderful 1 hour with you. Thank you so much. And all the
Thank you
best to
very
many
much.
more podcasts.
Thank you. That was Krishna Shantakumar. And my first job, the podcast, is a production from Ideascape Communications. Guest relations, promotions, and creative is managed by Deepa Ravi, with occasional chipping in by Venu Gopal Nair. Archiving and technical help is provided by LPS Jayachandran. We'll be back with another episode and another guest. Thank you all for watching and for listening. Thank you.